Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Two Doors podcast. I am here with Kate Givoni. Kate is based in Melbourne and is the head of engineering in payments division at Xero, a cloud accounting software as a service. With a software engineering background, Kate has led engineering teams for over 20 years. Her previous role was a CTO at a startup building solutions for the quick service restaurant industry. Kate is passionate about delivering high impact solutions that delight customers and building and empowering teams to succeed. Beyond Kate's core role, she is deeply curious about how organizations can innovate and adapt to rapid technological change. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
So how do you feel when you hear this introduction?
Scary. Um, yeah, it's I think it's a good description of at least what I would like to see, and what I try to focus on, and and also about what drives me every day. What's a reason to wake, to go out of bed and try to do the best. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, the landscape is changing, isn't it? Like it's always changing to lead. Because I mean, you lead a team of 50, right? And I've enjoyed our conversations, and I'm really excited to jump into some of this today with you as well. But it's a rapidly changing environment. Even for the past year or 2 years, we're seeing such a huge scale up, aren't we?
Yeah. Look, I think the joys of being in the tech world is that it's like never stand still. And while if you go back about 20 years ago, things were, changing much slower, I think right now the changes are so fast. And it's a big challenge how you actually adapt to that, how you may be being made aware of it, how do you adapt to it, how do you know what is good and what's not. It's a big challenge, but I this is a reality. You can't just escape it. Um, and and I think I accept this challenge, and I don't know the answers. But again, this is I think what makes it more intriguing, more something that you look forward to actually try and resolve.
It's so true, and because leadership is a challenge, isn't it? There's often challenges, but they're very rewarding, as well as the tech industry. And I feel that with leadership, the principles stay the same, whereas technology is always changing. Like if it didn't change, we would still be, we're using Flash as an up to date technology or something crazy like and you never know where it's gonna go, right? Like I mean, for myself, I've even seen I used to like talk about Elm. I was like, Elm is going to be the next front end framework, and it's all rapidly evolving and changing. But I think the principles with leadership they always remain the same. And how would you define good leadership, Kate? Because obviously, in a team of 50, it's not going to just be you knows shows goes. It's like you're going to be leading other leaders, I presume.
Yeah. Look, I think with leadership, it's a matter of like everyone has their own personal styles, and it's also about the journey. The leader I am today is not the leader that I used to be 10 years ago or beforehand. I think this is like an evolution. Some of this
Mhm.
evolution is because of the experience that I gained. Some of it is because I get some inspirations from others. It can be peers or friends or leaders outside even the tech world, or listening to podcasts, and some there are lots of good thought leaders that I definitely think that they helped shape my world. So again, so for me, it's also my leadership. I think it's style is something that is evolving. I don't think it's something that stands still. You still may have like some foundational principles, things that you may believe in. For me, it's like things like empathy or transparency. These are things that I realize that are very, things, fundamental things for me that, actually drive the other things. But and for others, they may choose other leaders may choose other core principles for them, and also other inspiring leaders that for them. So I think it's very personal. I don't think it's like there's one recipe that fits everyone.
I agree, and different personalities demand different types of leadership as well. What I picked up there was the emotional intelligence aspect of the empathy going on a journey with the team, but also just being very open. I think when a leader is a true leader, they're not just managing people. Whereas a manager, it's very much do as I say, don't do as I do. But when you're transparent, you earn that respect of your team, and then you go on that journey together.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's about that, and it's also about being vulnerable. There are a lot of researches about what the connection between good leadership and how you actually show up with your vulnerabilities, and create. This is another principle. How you create that safe space for so people can uh, perform better. Okay, so I think this is like another pillar of that. Yeah.
And what's a good way to be vulnerable? And the reason I asked that, Kate, is because I've seen it go a few different ways. Where some people are like, "Hi, good to meet you. Oh my god, you can't believe it. I've just been. This has happened in my personal life." But then it's like the other aspect where some people they just realize that you're a human. So yeah, what's a good way to be vulnerable with people?
I think a good way is what I try to do at least is on one hand to show that be show courage to be up to the challenge, but on the same hand admit that I don't know everything, and I may miss out on specific important details, and I invite in feedback. So I think this is like how you actually get that into practice. I think this is like the art. Um, because sometimes I think some people think that if they will show that they don't know everything, they are the smartest person in the room, and they would not let others challenge what they say. They actually miss out on they may miss out on execution later on, and also like not help build the culture of people like actually taking ownership, being feel confident to speak up and have a decent conversation about you know the future challenges of that team. Um, yeah, so I think like this is there are different ways to practice that. And I think also with different teams, it's not, I think, there are some teams where I felt more confident to immediately open up. And with some others, it was a longer journey.
Mm.
Um, I think you also have to feel the grounds to actually know how to actually become vulnerable.
Mm. It's right because yeah, you got to trust your gut, but then your gut comes from experiences. So it's like knowing that you just have to imperfectly take action. So not like what I picked up is just don't be perfect because when you strive for perfection, you can often just be paralyzed rather than what you're saying there is like being bold, being courageous, but being a human and that's what I always admire about leaders is that they really take the courage to just take steps and be decisive. And sometimes it's really hard because you're like, I don't know what we should do, but my gut is telling me, let's take this decision. Let's go on this. Like, even right now for you, it's must be tough. Like, end of financial year, a few things going on, but you make those decisions for your team as well, and that psychological safety for everyone. And what would be your recommendations for Kate? Anyone trying to get into leadership? Like, what would you recommend for like maybe some seniors out there and they're just thinking, oh well, I could go down the principal path and just be on the tools. I don't know too much about that people leadership element, but maybe there's an opportunity coming up. What would you recommend to them?
Mhm. First, I think both paths are like very decent avenues, and I don't think one is better than the other. I think it's more about what you're really pursuing. I think if you go more on the in like solo contributor path, this is where you're expected like to be much more hands-on and be constantly, up to date with all the technology stuff details. Uh, in Xero and maybe other companies as well. Sometimes you also, the expectations is for you to work with people. You're not just by yourself. So you still work with people, but you have different responsibility for the people and the delivery than if you go to become a people leader. Um, So I think it's a lot about what you're pursuing. If you are, withdrawn, to deal more with also the complexity of people and help them, there are also a lot of like unfancy parts of this of people leadership, because people, we can be, there are some days where we are great and some days where we're unhappy. A lot of people are unhappy with changes, so you need to a lot to do, how to lead the people through the changes successfully. And as you mentioned before, the changes are just happening more and more frequently. It's not just technological. I mean, there are technological changes that will require changes in ways of working, for example.
Mm.
But it's also usually involved with other, environments, factors, business outcomes, and so that, as a people leader, you have to deal with that. So I think it's like it depends what is your passion.
Mm.
I see, individual contributors can become very influential leaders. So even if they don't, they don't have a title manager, they can still do have a lot of impact on a lot of people in their org. But they are not responsible directly for, their, remuneration and things like that. So it's really at the end of the day, what brings you, what is your passion, what would bring you satisfaction,
Yeah.
okay, and rather than just the title.
And I would love to jump in to one of those points a bit deeper for more junior people jumping into in this changing landscape of, because what comes to mind when you were saying all of that was communication. Like for myself, I failed a fair amount in leadership. Like I used to be too nice and too kind, and oh yeah, like don't worry, and I would try and jump in their fuzz rather than leading by example and just being that a good, decisive, assertive, but empathetic and understanding, and be there for them. But my sense is that the market is shifting. And what I mean by that is that with the use of technology like AI and bots that we can use, we still need juniors in the market. So a great podcast we had was Ryan Big, who talks, he built like the junior leadership, like the mentorship program at Culture Amp. And he was talking very much that we still need juniors coming into the market, but my feeling is that they have to learn a bit of communication skills as well as software engineering. It's like the demands are getting higher, but I think the rewards are quite good, because from what I see from remuneration aspects is that they can jump quite high. So I used to ask people, Kate, I'd say, what would you recommend your younger self? And we had a person on there saying, I wouldn't recommend anything to myself because it was so different back then. So what would you recommend to more junior developers or people out there, like just that want to scale and have a great career?
Okay. First, I think my personal view is we always need juniors. It's like it's and I think this is a part of like another I would say principle for me. I dearly believe in diversity, and diversity, in different dimension, and one of them is about your tenure. And I think what juniors bring to the table, by the way, it can be juniors that are really also young people, or someone else, older, that made transformation. Both of them has really great, they can be great contributors, each of them with different, value. And juniors, I think they bring a lot of like fresh thinking, things that they are not, they don't have the fears of us, the experienced people, so they can bring some new ideas and new considerations and shock the system a bit. And I think it's very healthy. I think it, by the way, it's a matter of balance at the end of the day. I think it's good to have a mixture.
True.
Okay, but definitely juniors is like non-negotiable for me. It's always, I think, a good thing to have, and they bring a lot of, I think, fresh blood and good vibes to the teams. Um, just one thing you touch on communication. That's such a big topic, such an important
Mm.
thing. For it doesn't matter which role you are. So so basic, and something I think we all, it's for everyone, I guess, a journey, how we become better and better in our communication. It doesn't matter where you start, there's always room to become better at that. And as for suggestions, I think what I would tell younger people is to be really curious, and be, be good listeners, and be have enough confidence also to speak up. Like, this is what I'd suggest someone just starting their journey, uh, and be genuinely curious. And this is also for someone who's like going into leadership roles. I think if we're generally curious about the problem, about what our other team around us think, doesn't matter which level in the hierarchy, I think this is where we learn a lot. And at the end of the day, we can reach better outcome.
Mm. That is a phenomenal answer, Kate. I there's a lot in there. That's a lot of wisdom as well that you've pushed down for brevity into a few words. So being curious, that's very powerful. The power of listening and also being confident, because listening is huge, isn't it? Like, if you listen to people, they feel heard. Like, we've got two ears, two eyes, and one mouth for a reason, but we often use the mouth in multiplication rather than the eyes and the ears. So that's fascinating, and it is a skill, isn't it? Like, listening is a skill, like active listening. I know, for myself, I've had to really work on it, and that's brilliant. So then, what does the future of technology look like? Obviously, I know that in accounting software, in software as a service, that it's always quite a progressive land. I mean, there's always we're talking about machine learning modules like many years ago, before LLMs were big. And but yeah, what do you think like the future of technology looks like?
I don't think a future is one. I see it as like a lot of dots in the future. It's not one phase. I think it's just going to. So I think we're just going to be hit with more and more changes. It's really interesting that it's. I think we start seeing how the roles are shaping up, and we are trying to rely more and more on AI as tools. AI will gradually replace some of the functions, and it will keep on replacing it, I think. But it will transition people into different roles, not necessarily just dismiss them. Um, so, because I already see, we have, you have Copilot. It's not new, right? It's been there for a few years. We still need engineers, but as we go, these tools becoming more and more sophisticated to actually write code. And then you still have the skills. You still need the skills of how do you tell it to write I mean, how do you actually articulate the requirement of that tool, and how you make sure that the outcome is what you expected, and it's like good enough, compliant, and all this stuff. So this is like the next phase. But I think, there will be other phases after that. Um, so I think, most organization, I don't know about government, but, other, public, not public companies or private companies, they embed more and more AI tools, and it's really interesting to see how much they actually help. So this is like what is really intriguing, as well as like interesting. And the other thing is about the DevOps space, which also shapes a lot, changes a lot the way we work. And I think it's gonna be it's supposed what I'm expecting it to be more simplifying things. At the moment, I don't see how it simplifies. It just adds more. It adds more power, but not simplify the experience for the engineers. So I'm actually looking, and the DevOps space is keep on taking more and more, like like I think eating more and more, like not eating, but you need more and more skills in order to find your ways as an engineer in the DevOps space. And it will be really interesting to see later on, what's the balance between the pure like engineering that we have and the DevOps.
Yeah,
Okay, and I just what the one thing that I did not talk about at all is the data world, but which I don't feel. I think I need to have more thinking about how does that change our life, but it is changing our lives.
yeah.
So.
We'll have to get you on for another time to talk about data because, yeah, that's a huge space. And especially the utilization of these large language models or AI or anything. It's like, where is it being verified? Where is the security aspect? I know with Copilot, it's closed, right? So there is security there. And that's a brilliant point about simplicity. I've not heard that from anybody. So utilizing technology to make your life more simpler, because right now, yeah, DevOps is getting a bit more complicated and the expectations are high. I remember about 7 years ago where there was designated people in certain positions, and now it's just expected. Like, I've seen a real shift in the market from that specialist to now a generalist, and it's not even like a T-shaped; it's an I-shaped or M-shaped developer, whatever shape you want to call it, where just the expectations are that you know and do so much. So that's brilliant. And have you seen many of the advancements in the simplicity? Have you seen much of that, or is it just a prediction?
I want to see more. Because look, we for example, we've been working with a tool that we embedded, I think, a year ago. It's one of these more advanced tools that's supposed to be a centralized place for all the, be a register and take care of deployments and know everything about the teams. And and I would like, when we I heard about it, I really got excited, but it's still not a place where everyone go to actually find information or utilize it, or and still I hear from the teams that are struggling with a lot of things that are supposed to actually somehow connect to this central system. So for me, it's like still an indicator we're not at the promised land yet. There's a lot to go, because at the end of the day, I would like to achieve a lot of transparency across the organization, plus teams that do not sweat on this DevOps stuff.
Mm.
But this is not the reality at the moment. So not to the extent that I'd like it to be. Um, so I'm still, I think we probably haven't utilized that tool well enough. And I think also this tool is maturing with us. It's relatively, I don't think it's more than 3, 4 years old. And again, there's very few of these in the market. So
Mm.
I'm still looking to see how it's going to shape us. I think it's less us shaping the tool as Xero, but I want to see how, again, at the end of the day, I wanted to unlock the teams to go faster.
Yes,
If that makes sense.
that does. And any imparting wisdoms you'd like to share? Any final thoughts, Kate? Anything you'd like to share?
Um, no, I think I am really grateful for being, in an era with, technology around to, in this maturity state. I think it's offering so many challenges. So everyone who's like enjoying, if you're a problem solver, I think you can always find a niche that you can thrive in. And I think, for leadership, I would want to see a lot of people going into leadership. And again, leadership is not necessarily, you can be a leader, but still an individual contributor. You can be a very influential leader also,
Mm.
but not by leading people directly. And I would encourage, we need people, good people in both individual contributors and the people leaders. And yeah, so I find this, whole space exciting, and I do hope, that also younger generation would.
Yeah, I agree. And this has been brilliant, Kate. So thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.